Hi, it's Vex, and today, the end of March, we have our March 2023 staples. That's right. I apologize for my, little lack of videos. I've been a little under the weather this month. Haven't been able to play enough games, but as tradition will happen this year, at the end of every month we'll have our pile of staples. So this is the pile of staples we have this month, and interestingly enough, we have three white staples, a black staple, a token that belongs to this guy right here, and some other ultra staples that I have added more copies of to my pile. So let's begin. Let's actually talk about these. These are the staples that I already have in my pile. But again, I like to build multiple decks with new sets, so I like to have repeat cards so I don't have to pull from decks. I have Exotic Orchard. I love Exotic Orchard because it comes into play untapped. Add one mana of any color that a land and opponent controls could produce. So, most likely, commander decks are usually 2 colors or 3 colors, maybe 4 or 5 colors. If a land can produce a color, Exotic Orchard can produce that color as well. So, I use it for 3 colors decks, and it usually comes into play and produces all the colors I need. Now, when it's the first turn of the game, this does absolutely nothing. But if this is your only land, you should definitely mulligan. Don't keep that. And most of the time, this is a rainbow land. I know towards the end of the game, when opponents get eliminated, this gets makes less and less colors. But again, at the end of the game, you should have all your colors set up, and this will still be good. As for Thespian Stage, I love copying things. That's one of the things I love doing in the channel. And this, comes in untapped, which is great. Untapped lands are great. 2 tap. This becomes a copy of target land, except it has this ability. So you can keep copying lands. You can copy your Exotic Orchard, then untap, make anything, or you can copy people's, Gaze, Cradles, etc. Mana, not Mana Crypt, Mana Vault. I was about to say Ancient Tombs, the Soul land. You can copy Ancient Tombs. You can copy whatever land, a basic land. So I think having a versatile land like Thespian Stage in every deck is really cool because it just alters the texture of the game because it depends on what your opponent does that you get to copy. So I really like these 2 cards. All right, on to the main event here. We're going to use Staff of the Storyteller. Now, this card is insane. I'm not going to lie. Let's actually read this. It's a brand new card from Phyrexia All Will Be One. 1 in white artifact. Whenever Staff of the Storyteller ETBs, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. So you get 1/1 flying. Then whenever you create 1 or more creature tokens, put a story counter on Staff of the Storyteller. White tap, remove a story counter from Staff of the Storyteller, draw a card. So, if you may think, right, you play this, 1 in a white, you ETB make this, right? When you make this, you put a story counter on, then you pay 1 white, remove a story counter, draw a card. This looks very familiar to a lot of things that we've seen before. Let me introduce you to Inspiring Overseer. If you just look, you pay 2 in a white, flying, ETB, gain 1 life, draw a card. Essentially, this is 1 white, so 3 mana value, flying, draw a card. However, it leaves material behind for you to draw more cards on future turns with more tokens. So, if you see my Eldritch Norn deck tech, I like to have these 3 mana ETB draw cards, like Priest of Ancient Lore, Rover, Harper. So essentially, I treat this as a 3 mana draw card, except for I can pay it in installments, and they continue to draw me more cards by creating more tokens, like other means of tokens. Pilgrim's Eye. I actually took all these cards out of my Eldritch Norn deck. Combat Thrashers cost 7, but you can pay 2 in a white, 1/1 double strike, draw a card, ETB draw a card. It's kind of like Welcoming Vampire in a way, like that. I just brought this card out to show. This one, when another small creature ETBs, draw a card. This one's the cool part is when you have tokens coming into play, you could keep charging the staff up, more and more, and then maybe you don't have any token makers, you can just draw a card, then draw another card, then draw a card. See, so I think this is one of the more powerful effects of my of these things. And the funny part is there's so many cards coming out, it's hard to keep track. I didn't include this in my Eldritch Norn deck, but this one definitely include my Eldritch Norn deck because it does have an ETB effect. You make 2 spirits. The middle effect when you put counters on there is not an ETB. It's just when you create one or more tokens, you put a counter on there. But it's essentially a 3-mana draw card. So it'd be really good in my Eldritch Norn deck. All right, moving on to the next staple. Oh, why am I moving on? I didn't even describe how good this card is in token decks. Token decks, white weenie decks, just, it doesn't have to be a heavy token theme deck. Artifact deck, because this is an artifact. This deck is just, this card is amazing. They're putting a lot of good card draw on white. So this goes in a lot of cool decks, ETB decks, whatever decks, any decks. Actually, this is just generically a good card. That's why it's in a stable pile. What am I talking about? You can put almost any deck and you'd be happy with it. Speaking of making tokens here, we're moving on finally. We have an oldie but goodie from Zendikar Rising, Feldar Retreat. And this actually synergizes really well with Staff of the Storyteller. Feldar Retreat, 3 and a white, Landfall. Will land ETBs under your control. Create a 2/2 white cat beast creature token. Or put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Those creatures gain vigilance until end of turn. So this is pretty neat. One thing I don't like is the token from Zendikar Rising doesn't match the cool little cute art right here. They actually have 2 cat tokens, a 1/1 and a 2/2 or something. It's a cat beast. So it does make a token. Land, of course, you play this, turn 4, it does nothing. You play a land, so I recommend playing this, then playing a land, getting your 2/2, get your value. Your 2/2 can put a counter on Staff of the Storyteller. Then you can draw a card of that land that you put into play. See? Synergy right there. And this is really good in, again, the same kind of decks, right? Your landfall decks, it doesn't have to be a dedicated landfall decks. Just dropping a land a turn still makes this thing really good because you can go wide or you can go tall, with +1/+1, or go wide with more cats. Right there. You put token decks, +1/+1 counter decks, ETB decks like Eldritch Norn. So it's just good all around. I keep pulling this card from a Zendikar Rising box over and over again. I'm like, why is this not my stable pile? So this is now my stable pile. And seeing as everything relates to each other, we have another white card. And I don't have a non-foil version, which I'm kind of upset about. I know, it's kind of hard to get the version you want when there's so many versions, right? We have Mondrak Glory Dominus, 2 white. 1 or more tokens would be created under your control. Twice that many of those tokens are created instead. Wow, that's pretty neat. And there's more, of course. 1 Phyrexian white, sacrifice 2 other artifacts and or creatures. Put an indestructible counter on Mondrak Glory Dominus. That's amazing. And Mondrak is a Phyrexian Horror 4/4 legendary creature. So this is the creature version of Anointed Procession. I forgot to grab that, but Anointed Procession, same thing. 2 white has this effect, but is an enchantment. So the cool part is when you make, when you create 1 or more tokens, you double it. So again, Staff of the Storyteller, ETB, you make 2 of these spirits. Unfortunately, the way it's worded, you don't get a counter per token created. When you create 1 or more creature tokens, so only 1 here, unfortunately. Same thing here. You play Feldar Retreat, play a land, get 2 of these cat beast tokens. Great. And the fun part is you play a land, you get extra mana left over. You could pay 1, sack these 2 creatures, and boom, put an indestructible counter on your Mondrak. So this, again, goes in token decks. This is more dedicated in token decks than any other thing. And the perfect deck for this to go in is my Myrkul Lord of Bones deck. And if you haven't seen a deck tech, I definitely check that out. But Myrkul is when another non-token creature you control dies, you may exile it. If you do, create a token that's a copy of that card, except for its enchantment loses all other card types. So it will turn Mondrak into Anointed Procession. In this case, Mondrak is insane in this deck because it doubles your tokens, and it's a sack outlet. You can continually do this, even if it has 1 indestructible counter. You can put 2 indestructible counters, 3 indestructible counters, boom, boom, boom. So this is insane with this. And if this gets destroyed anyways, right, because it's not indestructible, it is indestructible. But if it goes to a graveyard, somehow dies, it gets exiled and becomes enchantment. So with this ability. So now that's pretty neat. And enchantment, that's not a creature that also has a sack outlet. So much better than Anointed Procession. Works really well with Myrkul. And another card that works really well with Myrkul is Diabolic Intent. right here. So we have our last staple of March 2023, Diabolic Intent, 1 in a black. Same casting cost as Diabolic Tutor. As additional cost to cast a spell, sacrifice a creature. Search your library for a card, put in your hand, then shuffle. So same text as Demonic Tutor, except for you guys sack a creature to cast this card. That's not a problem in the Merkle deck, because you're just like, oh, I'll just sack a token. Or I'll sack Mondrak, who cares? Do Demonic Tutor, get the Merkle ability to trigger. So, as you can see, sometimes it's more beneficial to sack a creature and do Demonic Tutor than Demonic Tutor itself. Diabolic Intent does that for you. Unfortunately, the downside is when you have no creatures, this card is a do-nothing card. But it is really good, and in some decks, I think it's worth a slot over Demonic Tutor, like our Merkle Lord of Bones deck. Anyways, that is all I have for you this month. Some good token staples, and you can stack a token to Diabolic Intent. So this all goes in some kind of token deck. Maybe I'll make a token deck with all these crazy cards in it. Or maybe I won't, because I already have a token deck that does all these crazy things in Merkle, Lord of Bones. Anyways, those are the staples. I have the staple in the list below. You can check that out there. Click on the link, check the staples. There's also affiliate links, my social media, all this stuff. You could hit me up, ask me any questions. Definitely, if you have questions, leave it in the comments below. If you have staples that you want to be featured on this channel that you think are staple worthy, definitely add those in the comments below as well. And as always, I hope everybody has a wonderful day.